Hey everybody, Juan here. Today you're watching the first video on a series of Power Query videos. This one is going to be focused on more the beginner side, on how exactly do you go about cleaning something like this. So we have right here kind of a very messy spreadsheet. So you have so the year, it's up here, even though it should be somewhere else. You have here the product ID, and also we have like all sorts of different columns for each month. It's very clear that some changes need to happen right here. I also need to get rid of this one. So how do you go as to solve something like this? Well, the beginner way of doing it is the very first step, and this is optional, is I recommend you go into view. Recommend you to activate some options, including the formula bar. This shows us the M code underneath each operation. For now, in the next videos, we're going to speak about more about M, but for now, don't worry too much about it. Some other options that are nice is column quality, tells you which percent is null and so on. Column distribution, which in this moment is, well, blank, but you're literally going to see the effect, and column profile, which kind of gives you like an overview of a certain column. Column profile, sometimes I disable it when I don't need to explore the data, but these are really nice options. So the first thing that we're gonna do is remove the first row. So I'm gonna click here on remove rows, remove top rows, and then the number is gonna be 1. Now we get rid of the empty one, and we can click once again in use first row as headers. And that's going to replace the column 1, column 2, and so on into something more usable. So now we finally have what we needed. Then I'm going to get rid of this column right here. So you can either select the column, go to remove columns, and I can remove column like it's mentioned right here. This does the work. Some other options that you have is let me remove this step. Oh, and as you can notice, everything gets recorded right here step by step into every single thing that I've done. So here we had the table that here we had the table we started with, and we keep on going. So everything gets recorded, which is, it's really nice. Yes, I removed the column by explicitly selecting the one that I needed. I could also potentially select everything else, which in this case it's a bit more work, but just to show you that this is a possibility, select everything else and remove other columns. This has exactly the same effect. One thing that is interesting to notice is look at the code right here, and don't worry too much about the code. That is, when I click on remove everything else, it made a little list of all of the columns that it wanted to keep. As a matter of fact, even though I clicked on remove everything else, what it's actually doing is selecting the columns that are gonna stay. So that's, for now, we're gonna touch this in future videos, but just know that exactly what's happening in the background and what you tell it to do might not be the same. One last option that you have, let me remove this step, is to click on choose columns. I can choose the columns that I need, which in this case is everything except the last updated. And as you can see, this code-wise is identical to the last thing that we did. Okay, let's leave it like this for a while, and now we have one column per month. And this is, well, this is of course not optimal for a lot of reasons. Like it's very hard to compare, for example, March to July, or to like if you need to sum up the total for the whole year, it becomes a bit tedious. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna unpivot these columns. In other words, what is meant by unpivot is making data sets instead of like instead of wider, and by wide I mean in the number of columns, into longer ones, so in the number of rows. For this, I'm going to select every single month that I have on my data, go to transform, and click on unpivot columns. Right, so now this resembles a little bit more of what I wanted. I can rename attribute into month, and I can change value into returns. Now, some of you might already be thinking, hey Juan, this is not the most optimal way of doing it. And if you understand why renaming columns like that and some other stuff that I've been doing is not optimal, then you're gonna love the coming videos in this series. But for now, this is more focused for beginners on how exactly to get the job done. I personally believe true expertise comes from understanding how to do it, so how to get it done, and transition more into I know at least 3 ways of doing it, and I'm gonna show you the most optimal. So just wanted to get out of the way. Now we have something that resembles a little bit more what we wanted. We can potentially add a custom column with the year that we removed at the beginning. Remember, there was this 2020. This is once again not an optimal way of doing it, but it will get the job done. So it will be like adding a custom column, and this column is going to 2020, and I'm gonna call this year. And now we have a column with every single thing. The year 2020 in all of the rows. Finally, the last step is here. You notice that this one doesn't have a clear data type, and I know that this should be a whole number. So I turn this into a whole number, and that's it. We could potentially turn this into a real date and so on, but this is all that I wanted to show you in this video. So this will be how to get it done in a beginner way. Check my next video in this series if you're curious about what would be a more optimal way of solving this problem, and what are some beginner mistakes that I purposefully did in this video that I also noticed quite a lot of people do. So stay tuned, check my other videos if you like this one, and thank you for watching.